Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Schoenberg Hall. At this time, we ask that you please take a moment to turn off all electronic devices, including laptops, cell phones, and tablets. A reminder, there is to be no flash photography during this afternoon's performance. Also, please note, there are 4 illuminated exit signs in this theater, 2 in the back and 2 on the sides. In case of an emergency, please proceed to the exit nearest you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Barbara Van Nostrand. I am the Director of Student Affairs and Initiatives for the Division of Humanities, and I'm joined by my colleague, Shanshan Chiao, as the Manager of Asian Languages and Cultures, and we're here to get this thing started. Welcome to our Humanities Welcome. This is the 3rd year in a row that we have done this, and we are really excited to bring you all together to kind of highlight the best of the humanities. As you can see from your program, we're going to see faculty speaking, the dean, and also some of our successful alumni. So I'm really excited to get started. Afterwards, please join us for the reception outside, along with the club fair, so that you can see what all of our students are doing in the humanities. And last but not least, we have name tags for faculty and staff. Yellow is staff, blue is faculty. So please do come up to us and introduce yourselves as students. We love to partner with you guys, or if you're fellow staff members, we want to know who you are. And at the very end, I'll be back up to finish you off with a raffle for the students, so you can get some ASUCLA gift cards by the division. So without further ado, Shanshan will introduce our dean.
Thank you, Barbara. Actually, I have more than just one job of introducing the dean, but I would also like to basically talk to you a little bit about Asian languages and cultures. Not a lot, but this is actually a home department for Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Asian humanities and Asian religions majors, and we also have all the South and Southeast Asian languages that are available at UCLA. So please feel free to stop by. But we're also the home department for Dean David Schaberg. So David basically his research was in the focus in early Chinese thoughts and history. It was also during this time when he was the chair of the Asian Languages and Cultures I had the opportunity to work with David regularly. Although I'm not really working with David on a daily basis anymore, David is still very engaging and poised as ever, and his desire to help students only deepens as the dean. But of course, without all the wonderful faculty members that we have in the Division of Humanities, we'll not be able to offer you all the great classes that we have at UCLA. So since David became the dean, David also has led humanities into a new era of excellence and prestige by continually working with all the excellent faculty members to basically find new ways to really spread the importance of humanities to all the students here at UCLA. Not only that, in the Division of Humanities, I would say that we have the most amazing counselors in the College of Letters and Science. They are here to help you, and they're also here to really assist you and to guide you through your undergraduate career. So please do look at your pamphlet and your program to see who the home department, what your home departments are, and who the counselors are, and really reach out to them. You will find that these counselors are really the most amazing counselors that you'll find here at UCLA. Now, with also here and the faculty members, we really want you to go ahead and look at them, study with them, and utilize them. Because only in humanities, really, you'll find some of the most useful tools and practical skill sets that you will be able to take back with you, take home with you for your entire life, that actually will help you in your future career. I know it doesn't seem like it with a Chinese major or maybe an English major, but you'll find that some of these skill sets that you'll learn from these faculty members will carry you through life and will really help you advance in your future career. So without further ado, I would like to introduce David Schaberg, your Dean, Division of Humanities.
Thank you, Shanshan. Thank you all for spending an hour with us this afternoon. I know that the first week at school, for those of you who are just arriving, is a really busy and in some ways a confusing week. As it happens, my own oldest son is starting UC Santa Barbara this week, and so I've been going through the same experience you're having from the other side. What we're hoping to do today in our program is to give you a sense of the value that the humanities can have for you. And we'll do that in various ways. We'll have some introductions from faculty members of their own research with reflections on how that can benefit your careers. We'll have a panel conversation, a Q&A with two alumni who've done very well with their humanities majors. But I wanted to start out with a few reflections of my own. You may or may not know what the job of a dean is. In my case, I oversee 15 departments, ranging from things like philosophy and linguistics to things like art history, musicology. English, of course, is one of our most important departments, our largest department with the largest number of majors. We also cover a wide range of languages and literatures. Shanshan mentioned my own home department of Asian languages and cultures. Like most administrators at UCLA, I have an academic background. I'm a scholar of early China. I work on early Chinese historical writing, literature, and philosophy in a kind of comparative context with Greek and Latin literature. That's the thing that has obsessed me during my scholarly life. And in certain ways, that's what's led to my administrative life, mainly because the early Chinese cared a great deal about administrative problems and about how to run complex human organizations. But another job of a dean is to give commencement speeches. And I'm always standing there, and all of you are walking across the stage smiling, and the people out in the audience are whooping and cheering as you get your degrees. And I'm thinking, all of the exciting, inspirational things that we say at commencement, at the moment of your graduation when you leave UCLA and go out into the world, are all things that you should really hear at the beginning of your career at UCLA. Right? In a sense, commencement is exactly too late to say to you, here's how you should use your education. So we thought we'd take a little chance to suggest some things about how you can use the humanities as part of your experience at UCLA. Could I have the next slide, please? As you may expect, I spend a lot of time talking with employers, with business people, with philanthropists, people who care a lot about the university and care a lot about how young people are being educated for their lives in society. Something I hear quite a lot from them is that they're looking for people with the skills that humanities can cultivate. And I've listed some of these skills here. You could enumerate this list endlessly. In fact, in our conversation with the alumni, you'll hear some of the other things that can come out of a humanities experience. But these are the things I want to highlight for you. And again, this is by way of giving you a sense of what you can get from your coursework in the humanities during these years that will directly benefit you in future. Let's talk about career stuff first. When I talk with employers, when I talk with important business people who are affiliated with the university in one way or another, one thing they point out is that they need good writers. You'll hear your professors occasionally moan and groan that our students don't know how to write properly. Be the exception to that. Work hard at writing, because I know from my contacts with people outside the university that if you can write well in a number of different registers and a number of different genres, if you can help other people with their writing, if you can teach other people how to write better than they already do, you can write your own ticket in certain ways. In this connection, I often think of something that one of our most prominent alumni said during a commencement address of his own. This is a guy who did a degree in English at UCLA and then did an MBA at the Anderson School here at UCLA. And he says, you might think that it was my business degree, my MBA, that made my English degree useful, but you would have it exactly wrong. It was my English degree that made my MBA useful. The way he explains that is that it was in his English degree, through the experience of reading challenging literature from different places and times, working out analyses, communicating those analyses to other people in writing and in speech, that he learned all the communication skills that became useful to him when he rose through the ranks at Amazon, and then through the ranks at Disney, and then went off on his own to be an extremely successful financial manager. That business of communication, and that business of gaining cultural competence is not a trivial thing. It's the thing you use to show your power, no matter what field you end up in. You may be an engineer, and I hope there are engineers here today. You may be a mathematician. You may be a social scientist. The things you're going to learn about good writing, literary writing, the things you're going to learn about clear communication in your humanities classes will benefit you no matter what you're doing. Speaking, of course, is closely associated with that. Humanities classes tend to run a bit smaller than the classes you're going to encounter in some other disciplines here at UCLA, and that means that you're going to be called on to speak, to express your opinions, to formulate your opinions and reformulate them on the spot. You'll be doing that in lecture halls, you'll be doing that in small sections at your, later in your career, you'll be doing those in undergraduate seminars. And that means that when you go out into the world of work, you're going to be ready to hold your ground in a difficult conversation, to address a large group of people competently, and generally to make your own ideas clearly understood among the people you're working with. It's an extremely valuable skill, and again, employers are looking for it. Analysis. It's easy to caricature the humanities from outside. Oh, we're going to read The Mill on the Floss, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. Well, reading The Mill on the Floss is actually an incredibly complex cognitive exercise. You're reading something from a different century. You're projecting your understanding into a different context, in a different network of individuals. You're learning to see things from different positions. It's not especially surprising to discover that the single most common career among humanities BA holders is in management. You can see the connection. In management, one is responsible for a team working on a set of shared projects, but from very diverse points of view. Humanities puts you in a position to grapple with diversity, to understand people in their own contexts, and to figure out the best ways to work with those people toward a common goal. Again, employers love this stuff. This is what they want from UCLA graduates, and it's something that you have access to, whether you choose to major in the humanities or simply to take as many courses as you can in humanities. Imagination and creativity. As a China scholar, I hear all the time about the worries that people in China have about cultivating creativity in their students. It's a rather difficult thing to achieve, to cultivate creativity in someone. The traditional approach, an approach that still has a lot of value to it, is to expose people to really diverse materials, to show you, the students, materials from ancient times or from cultures that are far from our own, and to demand, or at least request strongly, that you learn how to understand those things in their own context. That exercise, that business of stretching yourself, is part of what makes you creative. It's part of what gives you a space for imagining things that haven't come into being yet. I'm going to save the languages for another moment. May I have the next slide, please? A little bit of facts and figures for you, and you can find all of these things on a website called humanitiesindicators.org. As you may know, in recent years, humanities has come under attack a bit, and people are not certain of its relevance to careers. The data show otherwise. First, even without this slide, I'll point out that in the UCLA College Senior Survey, which is a survey you take at the moment of leaving UCLA, humanities outpaces other divisions in all areas of satisfaction. So quality of faculty, quality of advising, accessibility of faculty, intellectual level of courses. There are good reasons to think that whatever else you may be doing vocationally, you will want to spend time working with humanities faculty because of their accessibility, because of their intellect, because of their willingness to grapple with you on an individual level as you think through the problems that matter to you. But some harder figures. 84% of humanities majors are satisfied with their choice of major 1 year after college graduation. Interesting figure because the real measure should probably be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years after graduation. And those figures are similarly high in satisfaction. 3 out of 4 employers want new hires with precisely the sorts of skills that the humanities teach: critical thinking, complex problem solving, written and oral communication. I would add teamwork, creativity, sense of humor, cultural competence, a few of these things that actually really matter in having smooth relationships with other people. Next slide, please. If you're aiming for a professional career, and if you're using humanities as a springboard, there's every reason to think that humanities is a very good starting point. And here we have figures about the performance of humanities BA recipients on the GMAT, on the MCAT, and on the LSAT. With the LSAT, it's an obvious thing, right? And we'll hear from one of our alumni speakers today that, you know, all that business of reading difficult texts and analyzing them really does pay off when you get to the LSAT. What's a little more surprising is that the business of analyzing and thinking through things and talking through complex problems with other people also helps you with your MCAT, also helps you with your GMAT. Medical schools are also looking for people who have the kind of human competence that can come from a serious engagement with culture of the sort you would get in humanities courses. Next slide, please. I pointed out to my son the other day as we were walking across the Santa Barbara campus, that's the Career Center. You should consider going there before your spring quarter of your senior year, which is the normal time for all of us to go. I urge you, please, go there to our Career Center early on, when you're starting to learn what you love about studying at UCLA, when you're starting to learn what you love about the world of knowledge, go by the Career Center and have a conversation to see what sorts of careers go best with your true vocation, with your true love. We've set up a beautiful set of events to help you think about careers. These flyers are available as you go out after the event today. And I want to make sure that you understand that you can think both about the things that you love academically and the things that you want to do with your life in the future, career-wise. Next slide, please. Going back to the question of language, UCLA is a very special place. While many institutions radically reduced their language offerings in the wake of the 2008-2009 financial crisis, UCLA didn't. We kept our language programs alive. You'll be hearing quite a lot today about one of our language programs. I want to emphasize that we're still offering 40 or 50 languages in varying degrees. What it means is that for a relatively elite group of students like yourselves, you have the opportunity to plot a very specialized, very niche career using one of the languages that simply is not widely spoken in the United States. You can set up for yourself a position where you're in high demand. Some of those languages offered at UCLA and very useful in the world of work are Arabic, Chinese, it's my own personal favorite, Hindi Urdu, we have a wonderful program in Hindi Urdu, Korean, Portuguese, Persian, Russian, Swahili, Turkish. The list goes on and on. I think maybe in our materials we have a list of all of those languages for you. Connected to this, I must urge you, if you have a chance, if you have the wherewithal, if you have the time to plan it in advance, please expose yourself to the experience of living abroad for at least a quarter. Take yourself and put yourself way outside your comfort zone. Experience the feeling of being a beginning speaker of a difficult second language and a beginning user of a difficult second culture. Make yourself uncomfortable. Every day you spend doing that, every day you spend living in a second culture and trying to come to grips with the difficulty of connecting is going to be valuable for you in future experiences of that kind. Next slide, please. Those of you who are newly studying languages or who have been studying languages and want to keep them up, I'd like you to know about the UCLA World Languages Day. This will be down at Bruin Plaza. It's a good opportunity to go and connect with language teachers, other language students, and to begin that process of developing a second language ability with all of its cognitive effects and preparing yourself for the possibility of living or traveling abroad. Next slide, please. I've talked a lot about career things, and I have colleagues among my 215 or so faculty colleagues in the Division of Humanities. I have colleagues who would say, you know, talking too much about the crass, money-related aspect of the humanities. In fact, the beautiful thing about the humanities is that no time is wasted. Every moment you spend devoting yourself to the pleasure of reading well, or the pleasure of writing well, or the pleasure of learning a second language, or learning to understand a piece of music, is also going to benefit you. It's going to benefit you in certain career ways. It will benefit you personally. I tend to break this down in terms of these interminable projects that all of us have for the rest of our lives. The project of trying to understand ourselves well, trying to know ourselves. It's an old dictum from the oracle at Delphi, know thyself, repeated by Socrates and various other thinkers. It's a project that never ends, but it's a project that can begin well in courses in the humanities. Knowing other people. UCLA is an intrinsically, deeply diverse place, and that's one of its glories. In your classroom, you'll be surrounded by people who come from very different positions and who bring those positions into the dynamic of the classroom to make that educational miracle in the classroom. The business of understanding the people around you, understanding your roommate, understanding your hallmates, understanding the person you're arguing with in the seminar room is also part of the personal benefit that comes from the humanities. Developing the ability to disagree with people in a state of real understanding of where your two positions are. It's something that you can train yourself in and that will be useful to you forever in relationships and, of course, also in your career. Finally, knowing something about the world. As I say, we offer all kinds of languages. We offer approaches to the literature and culture of the whole history of the world. This is a chance for you to see the range of things that human beings have been up to for these several thousand years of recorded history. This is your chance to grapple with the legacy of everything that our ancestors thought important enough to transmit to us. That stuff hasn't somehow become irrelevant with the coming of a new era. It's all there. We can draw on all of it for making our own new world. Next slide, please. We've got a new website. I encourage you to go and explore it. It's got some beautiful student profiles, which I especially like, very well written, but overall it's beautifully designed, and I can assure you that it's miles ahead of its predecessor. The earlier website was only a stepping stone to this one. Please go and explore that. Next slide, please. I also want to draw attention to a new minor program we have. We're devoting more and more attention to thinking about how humanities learning can influence your other career choices. We are in the process of creating a track in medical humanities, a track in environmental humanities, a track in digital humanities, and a track in public humanities as well. Already, the English department has pioneered this by creating a minor in literature and the environment, which allows you to work through imaginative texts, through representational texts, to think about how we're approaching our environment. If you're a socially committed person who's aiming to be involved in work on the extremely serious environmental crises we're facing, this is something for you to consider. Next slide, please. Oh, I always like to bring things like this out. First, that dictum from the oracle at Delphi, know thyself. Second, a little tag from the Roman playwright Terence, who claimed that I'm a human being, and therefore nothing that is human is alien to me. It's a deceptive little thing, because one has to find how people are different in order to overcome that difference and make a real connection. But the project is there. And then finally, from the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, who tells us that the person who knows the person who knows others is clever. The person who knows himself or herself is enlightened. And there's a real value there. Next slide, please. This is me. Note down the email address. I welcome emails from you. Some people have already come and introduced themselves to me. I'm interested in meeting with you if you're up for a chat. I want to get to know who our students are, why they're studying humanities, and what their aims are. Thank you for listening for that. Now, I'd like to introduce our two our two faculty speakers today. The first of our faculty speakers is Professor Olga Kagan. She's a professor of Slavic languages and literatures, and also the director of the Center for World Languages at UCLA. Most importantly, for today's presentation, she's the director of the Russian Flagship Program, which has been an extremely successful language training program here on campus. And I'm grateful to to Professor Kagan for being here with us today. Professor Kagan?
Thank you.
Great.
Well, thank you very much you can hear me, right? Thank you very much for inviting me to talk. Thank you, David, for the introduction. And I'm sure you understand already that I'll talk about languages. But if you look at this slide, you see not one name there, but you see two other names. And I want to introduce my colleagues. Dr. Susan Cresson is right over there. And Dr. Anna Kudima sitting over here. Okay. There is a reason for that. The three of us worked on this PowerPoint together, but that's, I could have probably put that PowerPoint together by myself. The main thing is, actually, no, there is a video in it which I couldn't have. But the main reason for this is that teaching in general is a collaborative effort. Teaching languages is a highly collaborative effort. And that's why I really want to acknowledge my colleagues, and it's all of us together. It's not just one person who teaches you, so you need to be aware of that. And I've been told to click, wait, let me look at the title first. Okay, learning foreign languages, why and how. Okay, so now I'll click that way. All right, so you have a quiz. Now, number one, true or false? Any reaction here? True. Well, who thinks that Americans are not good at languages? Raise your hands.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Who thinks that it's not true? All right. How about anyone can gain proficiency in a foreign language?
True.
Yeah, true.
All right. How about number three?
True.
True. Everything take motivation, right? That's number one. Learning a foreign language does take motivation. How about number four?
True.
Mm-hmm. Good guys. How about number five?
False.
What was the answer?
False.
False? Oh, all right. Well, all right. But you know what? I'll give you the correct answer.
Oh.
All right. So first one, of course, is false, right? To say that Americans are not good at languages doesn't make any sense. Americans are different. Everyone is different. So it makes zero sense. We like saying that for some mysterious reason. Everyone can become highly proficient in a foreign language. And I'm talking about highly proficient. I'm not talking about satisfying the language requirement and just taking a year. The answer is yes. You just need to be motivated, and you do need to devote a lot of time to it. And the last one, if one speaks a language other than English at home, yes, you are a bilingual. It's a different question of how bilingual you are. So you probably are more proficient in English, and you are somewhat bilingual in your home language. So why I put it there, what I'm trying to say is that you want to think the rest of those of you here who speak other languages, I'm sure there are lots of you here. When I talk about other things, think how you could fit into that picture, okay? And I'll come back to that if I'm allowed an extra minute. All right, so what I'm going to talk about, it's actually a challenge. You look to the left, you click to the right. All right, so what I'm going to talk about is about knowing a foreign language well, not just learning a foreign language a little bit. And here, something you can think about, and that's what humanities does for you. It makes you think. Well, I guess other disciplines try to do it too. So what does it mean to know a language well? How long does it take? And why would you bother? And of course, you may have your own answer, but I'll give you my answers, which are based on some research. So here is this thing known as an inverted pyramid. We have an inverted fountain here. You jump into it after you graduate, and you drink champagne. Okay, so that's the inverted fountain. This is an inverted pyramid. So this thing is here to show you how much effort it would take to learn a little bit of a language. So look at this novice low, novice mid, not much, right? So you can learn a little bit of language. Then keep going. To get to an intermediate level takes more, and keep going, and you can see that it takes more and more time, right? I know how much time it would take, I'll tell you. And that level that's called superior, we call it a professional level of proficiency. There are 2 students in this room now who just completed one of our programs, spent a year abroad, and came back with that level of proficiency. And I have no idea where they are. It's Brownie Ramirez and Lena Moratova. They're sitting right over there. Okay. Well, do this, guys. And I'm sure they'll agree it was a big effort and a worthwhile effort. But I want to show you this. Depending on what language you want to learn, if you start with English, this is how many hours you would need, depending on the language, to get to this really high level of proficiency, okay? So languages like French, Italian, Romanian, Spanish, they're closer to English, right? So in 600 hours, you can get a really good result. For others, Greek, Hebrew, Russian, Vietnamese, it's, of course, much longer lists, right? It's almost twice that. For the most difficult languages, Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, it's double that. However, if you speak one of those languages at home, you are already halfway up, so it doesn't take you so long. So if you speak any language at home, think about pursuing it to a higher level of proficiency. Don't just say, oh, I can talk a little bit. No, you can do much more. All right. So this is what we put together for our website to talk about high-level language proficiency, what it does for you. I think it's very similar to the list that Dean Scaber gave you for humanities in general. It gives you opportunities in multiple careers, analytical skills, transferable skills in public speaking. In language classes, you always have to perform, to speak, to appear in front of the audience, and ability to function multiculturally. And I don't need to go into the global world and all, we all know about that. We know it's true. Here is a program that I am director of. It's called UCLA Russian Flagship. It's a program that's funded by the federal government. And there are other languages that are funded as well, and they're the ones that Dean Scaber mentioned already as critical languages. So at UCLA, you can reach a high level of proficiency in any language, I suppose, if you commit. If you choose Russian, we have a roadmap for you how to reach that high level of proficiency. So what do our students do? If you look at these careers, you'll see these are careers that our graduates went into. You will see that then it's not immediately obvious that you need a language. It's not language teaching and it's not translation, right? However, again, as Dean Scaber said, it did help them to get into these professions, and it made them much more valuable. The Goldman Sachs, the student who was a Russian studies major, got an offer to work for Goldman Sachs because he had such a high level of proficiency in Russian. Okay, so he's working for them now. Okay. What's that? All right. And now, this is a sort of commercial for the program, and then I'll say a couple more words. Can we play?
Cool thing about the Flagship Program is
yeah, we can.
You don't have to be a Russian major to be in the Flagship.
You know, it's always better with live people. You can turn them on anytime. All right, let's try again. If we can't do that, you can go to our website and
cool thing about the Flagship Program is you don't have to be a Russian major to be in the Flagship Program. You could be a political science major or an engineer, and you can still work on your language skills and get the degree that you want. The great thing about the classes here at UCLA are we don't just focus on the language, but we're focused on literature, culture, current events. When you get back from that program with the superior level of language, that looks really good on any resume.
I think I'm on my way of attaining professional knowledge of the Russian language, and without it I would just stay on kind of semi-basic level.
The Russian program is the one exception I found at UCLA. It's the one program where people really get to know each other, where the professors really care, where you actually have help and extra activities outside of class. So I think it's probably one of my favorite things, one of the favorite activities at UCLA is the Russian program.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that's the website. I'm almost done. I suppose you're applauding the kids in the video. So this is our website. You can go and look and see what we do and so on. And I would be happy to invite all of you to join the Russian Flagship Program, which means you would study here for 3 or 4 years, get to a high level of proficiency, then spend a year abroad and come back with a professional proficiency. That's probably an unrealistic invitation. So I invite some of you who are interested in Russian to take a look at our program, come and talk to me, come and talk to my colleagues. But I invite all of you to think seriously about not just taking a year of a language, but really dedicate some time to it. And by some time, you already know it's a lot of time. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Professor Kagan. Next, I'd like to introduce Professor Helen Deutsch, who is a professor of English and the founding director of the Disability Studies minor here at UCLA. Her research is in the intersection between 18th century literature and disability studies, and she'll be telling us a bit about the Disability Studies program and associated things here at UCLA. Professor Deutsch.
As Monty Python used to say, and now for something completely different. I'm really happy to be here. I've been at UCLA for 20 years, and the students are the favorite thing about my job. We are lucky to have students like you. I will be talking about this gentleman in a second, but what I really want to talk to you about today is how disability studies transform my own perspective and my own work as a teacher and a scholar. And I think that's something about some of the values that David has been talking to you about that I really want to stress, that I see myself as a perpetual student and I see myself as learning from my students. So the Disability Studies minor, which is a freestanding interdisciplinary minor housed by the College of Arts and Sciences, epitomizes UCLA in its spirit of collaboration, intellectual curiosity, and inclusion of a variety of disciplinary perspectives in the study of disability. So it combines faculty from North and South Campus, psychiatric labs, choreographer studios, law school, and the English department. But what I want to stress today is that disability studies got a great deal of its inspiration when it took off, I think really in the 80s, from the critical thinking and imagination of humanities scholars. And it's going to be a crucial part of the new medical humanities initiative about which we're really excited. So disability, from the perspective of disability studies, is not a medical fact to be cured. It's not something that is wrong with you physically. It is rather a critical framework for thinking about the body in all its variation and its relationship to society and culture. Disability encompasses so many different kinds of mental and physical difference, and it is really the ultimate form of diversity, and it touches all of our lives. I've taught disability studies classes, about which I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment, and one thing I have noticed is that people come into these classes thinking they know nothing about disability studies, and within the first week, they're telling me things about themselves, about their families, about their lives, because it touches all of us. So it's not just an abstract idea, it's also a political minority, and it's a collective identity that any of us can enter at any time. Disability, as opposed to physical impairment, is also created by lack of access. So if there are no ramps, people with wheelchairs are disabled. If there are ramps, they are not. So that's why disability studies and medical humanities bring North and South Campus together, because doctors trained in disability studies and medical humanities understand that medicine is not just about the perspective of the doctor, and that medicine is an active collaboration between doctor and patient. And I've actually supervised 2 literature theses by pre-med students. I teach a lot of pre-med students when I teach these courses, who have gone on to become, I think, much better and much more compassionate doctors because of the work that they've done in literature and in disability studies. We've been talking about the values of the humanities, what it means to know yourself and to know others. And I think another perspective, especially for those of you who are pre-med out there, is that the humanities enable us not just to sustain life, which is what doctors are trained to do, but also to imagine the complex and varied ways of living well. I think that's something really that gives you a sense of what the medical humanities is about, in my view. Okay, so what does this have to do with Alexander Pope? Okay, I'm really scared of this clicker. Is he up? Okay, let's go back one though. There he is. Okay, so I'm an 18th century scholar, and I wrote my first book on this poet here, Alexander Pope, in his pose of authentic melancholy with his elbow on Homer that he translated. And if you become an English major and you take English 10B, which I've taught many times, or any poetry or 18th century course that I teach, I will talk your ear off about Alexander Pope and the heroic couplet, and you will wish you never read another couplet in your life, since that is the major literary form of the 18th century. I love couplets, and I wrote my thesis on Alexander Pope and the epic simile from Homer to Pope when I was in college, and I've been thinking about Pope for 30 years. I'm writing an essay on him right now. So basically, I wrote a book about Pope. Can I have the next slide? I'm just going to ask someone else to do it, called Resemblance and Disgrace, Alexander Pope and the Deformation of Culture. And basically what I noticed is that Pope, who was the most frequently visually portrayed person of his period, more than the prime minister, more than royalty, was physically deformed, and everybody knew it and everybody talked about it. This is one of the many lampoons that was done of him, because he was also a very aggressive and vicious satirist who made people really angry, and they responded by lampooning him. He was also Catholic, hence the Pope's mitre. I could go on about this forever, but I'm not gonna. Can I just have the next slide, please? So this is appended to the 1797 edition of Pope's works, and it is a unique original taken without his knowledge. That's what it says on the back. He did not authorize full-length portraits of himself. This is a way of saying that Pope's deformity was what made him an original. It was what gave him a trademark. And the ultimate couplet, I argued in my book about Pope, was deformity in perfect form. Now, what I want to stress here is that disability studies scholars reviewed this book, got a hold of me, and my work changed forever because of that, because I recognized that I was addressing a much larger audience and that my work had many larger implications than I had initially understood. And what was important about what I was doing was that for disability studies scholars is that I wasn't just pointing to the disabled character in the text. I was recognizing that Pope's body was not invisible. I was giving Pope himself as a disabled person his own voice back, and I was recognizing that disability was a fundamental formative part of the 18th century canon. And that's something I've continued to write about. So the last thing that I want to mention in this regard is that I stress this discovery and this kind of connection to this larger field because the interpretive skills and the close reading and the open-ended inquiry that humanist study provided me enabled me to notice this deformity, but also to interpret it, to make something of it. I was curious. I wondered why no one had talked about this before, and as a result, I transformed my understanding not just of Pope's poetry, but also of the 18th century and its implications for the present. And since then, I've taught a great deal of courses on disability studies, and some of my most successful courses have gone beyond the 18th century to talk about the genre of illness narrative, illness memoir, from the early modern period to the present. And I'm going to make a particular plug for you to take M103 on disability and literature, and one of our alumni is a veteran of another course I've done on illness narrative, a seminar 181, in which students not only read memoirs by disabled people, but they write their own and then comment on them and analyze them. So can I have the third slide, please? Here I just want to show you, should keep in your mind Hamlet's phrase, alas, poor Yorick. This is the skull of Jonathan Swift, and I'm going to give you an example right now of what I'm working on today, which kind of picks up on some of these themes that interest me of authorship, disability, individuality, exemplarity. When St. Patrick's Cathedral, where Jonathan Swift, the author of Gulliver's Travels, was the dean, the head priest, was flooded in the 1820s, Swift's skull was unearthed. And it was passed around. It just happened that the Royal Society of Medicine and of Phrenology was meeting in Dublin at that time. People were convinced that Swift was crazy because they couldn't tolerate the brutal irony of Gulliver's Travels. And if you're curious about why Book 4 of Gulliver's Travels would make people think that Swift was crazy, you have to take my class, and I will tell you all about it. But people would rather have thought that Swift himself was mad than actually tolerate what he was trying to say about human pride. And his skull became evidence of that and was literally passed around and analyzed by hosts of doctors. Contemporary scientists today use Swift's skull as evidence that phrenology, the study of the markings on the skull that indicate personality and character, has not gone away, but it has become the cognitive neurology and brain imaging. So that's all just a way to say that disability studies, medical humanities is still at the heart of what I do, and that Jonathan Swift knew way before these medical scholars did that what literature does, what radically great literature can do, is transform our understanding of the range and potential of what it means to be human. And for me, that is what the humanities is all about. So take some 18th century classes, you will love them. Take some disability studies classes, and come to the English department where we will take excellent care of you, I promise.
Division of Humanities here at UCLA. Next to me is Bear Allen Blaine, who received her degree in English in 2010. Mm-hmm. Next to her is Stacy Schroeder, who did her degrees in linguistics. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a degree in, excuse me, one of the combined degrees that our linguistics department offers, linguistics and computer science, and she graduated in 2009. Every year we invite alumni to come and talk with this group, simply so that you can see how recent alumni have turned their humanities scholarship into the ingredients for a career after UCLA. Mm-hmm. I think I'll start just by asking you a bit about your experience at UCLA, what you majored in, how your experience was, and what you're doing now.
You can go first.
Okay. Hello, I'm Bear. I was an English major, creative writing emphasis, and I was a theater minor at UCLA, and I took Professor Deutsch's class, and it was wonderful.
Great.
I'm Stacy Schrader, and in college I knew, like here at UCLA, I knew I wanted to work for Disney afterwards, so I started before I even found a major, I did the college program at Disneyland and then started doing internships, and then I found this linguistics and computer science major. And then after I graduated, I was hired full-time at Disney Channel, and now I am at Radio Disney. I'm the manager of digital communities, which means I run our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and make all our YouTube videos. Yeah.
So many more followers now.
I know, follow me.
And Bear, do you want to say a little bit about your...
So after I graduated, I went to Pepperdine School of Law and also got my master's degree in public policy. And I just took the bar in July, and now I'm job hunting.
Would you say that your English degree helped you in taking the bar?
Absolutely. I absolutely would. Also taking the LSAT.
Great. Stacey, I know that you think back fondly on one course in particular here at UCLA. I wonder...
Yeah, so my favorite class was syntax, which if you go into linguistics, you know that that is not the most popular part of linguistics. But I love, like, if you take the class, you get to make, like, you break down the sentence and then you, like, make a tree. And I just really like how you, like, looking at the creative things and then breaking it down and then putting it back together and everything. So I like that aspect of linguistics.
Yeah. Bear, do you want to recall a particular class?
I loved Professor Joyce's class. We didn't plan this, by the way. It just worked out that way that she was here. But I loved her class. You really do get to explore so many different pieces of literature, and in doing that, you learn so much about yourself, and you learn so much about how to interact with other people. And that's a skill that I don't think you could get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Great. So Bear, I was going to ask you, how would you say that your experience as a humanities student has helped you in your later career steps? And I know you have a complex combination of careers too. So
right, so I think that being in the humanities department really helped with that. It fostered an environment, or it gave me a solid foundation to be able to do whatever I want to do. So I worked in Compton for a year with the district attorney's office, and you learn people, and you get facts about a case, and you have to learn how to apply them to the law to really make your case work for you. And I do acting and modeling, and the same interaction that you get with literature when you study English, that type of interaction then transfers over to working with different kinds of people that you would in the industry. So.
Do you want to address that as well, Stacey? Do you feel that?
Sure. Well, in my world, humanities, you're really looking at different cultures and everything. And in my world, I get to look at the culture of like tween entertainment, and I get to talk about that all day. So like it's not like ancient literature or anything, but it's still like talking about our culture and the exciting things about it.
Analyzing.
Yeah, analyzing it.
Yeah, I think both of you are in a position to create culture in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, that draws on the kind of imagination that we try to cultivate in humanities. What part of your job do you find most satisfying? You know, now that you've come out of the university and you're in the world of work.
For me, I get to be very creative in my job. I get to come up, like brainstorm all the ideas of what we do for our YouTube videos and come up with different ways of telling different stories on our social networks. And then the most challenging part for me is time management. I have a lot on my plate and figuring out how to get it all done.
I think for me, both the most challenging and the most satisfying part of where my career has led me is that I really get to help people. And it can be a challenge because I get extremely emotionally invested in the clients that I get. And it can be very difficult to deal with that. A 4-year-old who's experienced domestic violence, for example. But the satisfaction you get in helping that person and in winning your case is, you can't even describe it. It's amazing.
Well, here you are in front of an audience of about 350, 400 people just beginning their careers at UCLA, and you're in the perfect position to give them crucial advice that will save them much trouble. What kinds of advice would you like to give them?
My first piece of advice would be to take advantage of networking. I did a few different internships at Disney, and I didn't realize at the time, like, I would just go in and be like, so what can I help you with? And then I would help with that. But that's, like, I should have really been taking advantage of, like, anybody is willing to talk to you. So just reach out to everyone and be like, can we get coffee? And it seems so scary when you're doing it. And then you get to coffee and you're like, oh, like, you're just a person. You just get to learn about each other. And then that's somebody who's now on your side and will help you with your future. And that's, for me, is that internships, but it's also like do that with your professors. go to their office hours and really reach out.
Right. So piggybacking off of that, don't be afraid to sit in the front row. Like, you may look like a nerd, but then you're going to get a job at the end of it, so who cares? And really network, get to know your professors. They're there to help you, and that's what they want to do. And I didn't do that. I didn't really go to office hours because I thought it was weird, and I would rather nap or something. But I guess that's something that I regret. I regret not knowing more people and really putting myself out there, because again, then you learn about yourself, and then that can better help you find what your true calling is.
Yeah, because everybody you reach out to, they have a whole network of people.
Right, absolutely.
Who that, like, they might know somebody who is as passionate about something, whatever you're passionate about.
And then I regret not studying abroad. So look
100%,
into it now and do it.
Yeah.
Because you'll never get another opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I felt like I didn't plan ahead and like saved classes so that I can like go take those classes abroad and everything. So yes, plan ahead and study abroad.
That's great. Yeah, and use those coffee cups that are the special gift of this to take your professors out.
Yeah.
I want to add my voice to
so
that.
then you can walk around like, oh, you have it too? Cool. Instant friendship.
Humanities faculty and graduate students are voracious engagers in conversation. Visit those office hours, talk to them. You'll find
they'll
out
do all the
kinds of
talking. Just show up. Right?
Right. I think maybe a final thing, if you want to talk about any hardships or challenges that you've faced, we've touched on them along the way, but hardships and challenges you've faced in your careers, ways that your UCLA experience may have played into helping you address those challenges.
Sure. The hardest part I've had in my career is I had a position at Disney Channel, and I was really trying to figure out what I should do next. And that's one of those things. You have to figure out what you want, and then you have to try really hard and work really hard at it and be patient. For me, I was looking at all the other departments within our company, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I identified Radio Disney Digital Marketing, and I just went to them and I was like, hey, I heard you're going to launch a Tumblr, can I just do that for you? And so then when a position in that department became available, I was the one that they turned to because I had already been working with them. So just do what you're passionate about, and things will work out, and keep working on it.
I think one of my hardest challenges was getting out of the UCLA bubble. You're here and you don't realize that you're surrounded by people who are very much like you. I lean more toward the left, I'm liberal and that sort of thing. And then I went to Pepperdine, which is not, and just being around totally different people, that kind of threw me off a bit. So I think had I networked, had I reached out more in my undergrad, then I would have been exposed to more people, and I would have been better able to handle just meeting people who thought a lot differently than me. And then you're, I don't know, then you can connect better with them, and that's how you solve problems. So.
Yeah, and I think something I want to draw out of both of your comments today is the matter of using these years at UCLA to discover what that thing is that you really care about, that you really want to devote all of your energy to, that you're willing to pull all-nighters for, that you care about doing as well as it possibly can be done. Finding that vocation in the strict sense of the word is a challenge, but it's an opportunity you've got. It's an opportunity that the humanities support really well. Anything else you want to say to the crowd at this moment?
Can I push being an English major?
Please do.
I absolutely loved it. I think it gave me such a solid foundation to do just about anything. You know, a lot of people say, oh, what are you going to do with an English degree? Well, do you know words? Do you know how to use them correctly? Okay, then great. So you can do just about anything with it. I loved that I got a master's in public policy. I love that I got a law degree. I can absolutely do anything I want to do, and I want to help people. And having an English degree as a foundation, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it was the best thing I could have done for myself.
Well, I just, before this, found out that linguistics is stealing the English majors away, so go with linguistics.
Yeah. There are wonderful things to be gotten in all of our majors. You know, and quite seriously, all of them offer this intellectual discipline, and there are waxings and wanings and trends. But please join me in thanking our two alumni for coming to speak with us today. That concludes the formal program. I really hope